You mentioned the Song Paper Moon, but I think the period music in this film has a huge impact, not only in reminding us where we are, but in informing character. Could you talk about how you've done this in many films, use music of the period?
Well, it does something. We did it in Targets where we couldn't afford to have a score, and some friend of mine gave me 5 really very bad records that he had produced, and he said, "You can use anything you want of this." So I used it as a sound effect. The radio's on, you hear the radio on or the TV or whatever, and I liked the effect it gave. It gave an effect of another world existing beyond the world that we're watching, and because I often use the music as counterpoint. I really took that to the next step in the last picture show where we had 28 songs. And there was not even a name for what that is when we did it. Now it's called a song score. When we did it, I just said it was because we used source music. And we got 28 songs, including 9 Hank Williams and Tony Bennett and Eddie Fisher and Lefty Frizzell and so on, for $75,000. It's a joke. You couldn't get one song for that today. And but I use the music as counterpoint. In other words, the simplistic way of explaining that is, if it's a sad scene, I use an up-tempo song. If it's a sort of a slow scene, if it's a happy scene, we use a sort of slower song. And that's not really. This is very loose, kind of general description, but I did not use the music as underscore, in other words, to tell the audience how to feel, just the opposite. And we did it again in Paper Moon. We even did it in What's Up Doc. There's no score in that. There's just muzak in the elevator and when you'd hear something on the radio. I love music in movies, but I don't like it in my movies. I like source music. I like the feeling of another world happening beyond the scene that you're watching. I first saw that used in a sort of, not quite the way I did it, but I got the inspiration for it from Rear Window, where Hitchcock basically didn't use a score. He had source music, although there's a score at the beginning and at the end, but he basically used source music or sound without underscoring. I think it's very effective. It's very effective there.
I know many people are familiar with your acting from The Sopranos and the other acting jobs you do, but I also know you're still very much directing. And do you want to talk about any future projects you have that you're working on?
Well, I've got a comedy, there's a screwball comedy that we're going to do sometime as soon as we can figure out who to use in it, called Squirrels to the Nuts. It better be a comedy with that title. It's a screwball comedy set in New York about an escort and a lot of guys who get in trouble because of her. She's sort of innocent in a way, but it's a funny picture. And then I have a fantasy, well, a kind of realistic fantasy. It's a ghost picture. There's 6 ghosts in it, but they're played for laughs mainly, and sort of some sadness as well, called Wait for Me. And that's a movie about a filmmaker who's also an actor, director, producer, somebody like Woody Allen or John Cassavetes or Orson or somebody, who's been married 6 times, has 6 daughters, and what happens to him when the wife, his most recent wife, dies in a plane crash. He falls apart, and it's his resurrection, this sort of the story.
It sounds like a great 40s movie also.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell it is. I've been working on it for about 25 years. I'm going to make it sometime. It was an 80s movie when I started it.
It's really an honor, I know, for our students and for the rest of the faculty to have you here now at School of the Arts. Are you enjoying teaching at a film conservatory?
The students are very bright and very open and very interested, And it's nice to see young people interested in what you're saying, you know. A lot of times young people are bored with older people talking. Maybe it's because they want a good mark, but
I don't think that.
they seem interested. And I like the students very much. They should see more older films. You know, I have a bone to pick with people who say, have you seen that old film, 30s film? Have you seen that old film by Lubitsch? Have you seen that old film? Nobody ever says, have you seen that old play by Shakespeare? Have you heard that old symphony by Mozart? Have you read that old book by Hemingway? Nobody ever says that. It's always old movies, though. It irritates me. If you haven't seen it, it's new. So I try to impress that on the kids.
It's a lesson worth imparting, as many of us believe. I want to ask for any questions from the audience, and if you'll just raise your hand, I'll repeat the question so everyone can hear it. Anybody? Yes, Mr. in the back.
Could you talk about the influence of Roger Corman on your career, who just won the honorary Oscar earlier this year?
I think you could all hear that.
Well, Roger, you know, I worked with Roger on the first film I ever worked on was a Roger Corman directed and produced production called The Wild Angels, with Peter Fonda, Nancy Sinatra, and Bruce Dern. And I actually ended up shooting about 3 weeks of second unit on the picture. I learned from Roger that the director has to constantly be ready with the next shot. It doesn't sound like a very huge thing, but you say, okay, we got that, cut, print, we're over here. If you say, cut, print, now let's see, what should we do now? Everybody goes to sleep. So the trick is to just keep the momentum moving, because I like to have a fun set. I like everything to be fun. It's hard work, but I don't like the feeling of, oh, this is really drudgery, this is hard work. So I like to get the performance early on, the first or second take if I can. I'll go 20 takes if I have to, if we can't get it. But one of the main things I learned from Roger is keep it moving, keep going, go on to the next shot. As soon as you get one, go on to the next one. And also the kind of guerrilla warfare. There's nothing you can't do. You're not allowed to shoot on the freeway. Oh, what the hell, we'll just shoot on the freeway. We did on targets. We just shot on the freeway. You're not allowed to do it. We could have got arrested. But we didn't. We were shooting off the freeway, on the freeway, everything. We just shot it. In fact, some police cars went by. I said, shoot the police cars.
All of our students, please disregard this.
It's called guerrilla filmmaking. This chair is the musical comedy chair. I'm going to break it now. You know, one of these is this kind of shtick. Wait a minute.
All right, yes.
If I remember correctly, when RiverRun came out, there was a minor clap about the fact that Tatum was smoking. Do you recall that, and can you comment on that? Did she smoke when she began the film?
This was a controversy about Tatum O'Neal actually smoking in the scenes of the film.
Well, she was smoking lettuce cigarettes, which tasted terrible, but she got hooked on them. There was no nicotine in it, but they were cigarettes made of lettuce in Texas. We used to import them for her. And she would play cards with the crew, you know. And she imitated, I was smoking in those days, not the lettuce cigarettes. I was smoking, I don't know what I was smoking, Cools or Marlboro or something equally unhealthy. And she imitated me smoking, so she really inhaled, which is what sold it, you know. And she'd be smoking off camera, playing cards with the crew. I'd say, okay, Tatum, just okay. But she got off it as soon as the picture was over.